Good evening, and welcome to Dan Bain's Sleepy Time Mumbles, a podcast you can't miss. I'm Dan Bain, and every episode I improvise a low-stakes podcast for you to fall asleep to. Friends, I've been privileged over the years that I've been recording the podcast to receive a great deal of listener feedback. But I feel like an extraordinary piece has just been delivered via Apple Podcasts America. I will now read this review. 5 golden stars. A gem of the modern human era. 5 golden stars. If I were asked 80 years ago to imagine the best fruit that future technologies would bear, I would never have imagined that drifting off to the whimsical improvisations of a silky-voiced actor from the other side of the planet would be on the list. I would have been wrong. While sleepy podcasts are a dime a dozen now, Sleepy Time Mumbles rises above the rest and serves as an auditory companion, holding your hand as it gently guides you into the sleepy realm. Whirring thoughts, spooked from seeing a trailer for a scary movie when you went to the movie theatre to watch a non-scary movie. Missing a father figure in your life. Dan Bain's Sleepy Time Mumbles will take care of all these problems. If you enjoy the podcast, well, do make sure to support him, either by buying him a coffee, buying some of the excellent Sleepy Time Mumbles merchandise, or subscribing to unlock the older episodes. You can also pen your own 5 golden star review, which you might read in a future episode, narrating your own words in his illustrious Kiwi accent, which makes everyday words such as kumquats, gesticulate, nanophotonics, and Peter picked a peck of pickled peppers sound wonderfully whimsical. Furthermore, I vote yes for the chimes, but only in the beginning of the episode. Thank you, Dan. And that is a review from Raphael the dog on America iTunes. Thank you, Raphael the dog. That was a very comprehensive and kind review. And not only that, but it also managed to comprehensively cover the majority of information that I always try to get across in the opening of the episode. So thank you so much for that. If you're a subscriber, you'll be hearing this episode before the voting deadline. Chimes are still well ahead, although a few valiant attempts to stop it. At the moment, I am swayed towards chimes only at the beginning, and perhaps in the transition into the episode, out of the opening. That's feeling quite good for me. Voting will close on October the 31st, the spookiest of days, for the spookiest of decisions. You could do some voting yourself. You could leave a review like Raphael, but not now. No. They can wait. For now, put down your phone, turn off your screens, close your eyes. Now it's time to be mumbled to sleep. Season 5, Episode 12, Pseudo-Medieval Sword Adventure 6. Pseudo-Medieval Sword Adventure, Book 1, The Hammer of Anvilston, The Raven's Keep Sequence, Catalyst Rising, Chapter 97. Pokarth Six Swords stood at the base of the steps, looking at the door in the side of the hill. There were 6 steps that led up to it, and the door itself was heavy oak, banded with strips of black iron, with heavy rivets holding it together. He drew one of his 6 swords, the one that made his personality inquisitive and good at looking at stuff, and ascended the steps. There was a big handle on the door, and when he turned it, he was surprised to find that it wasn't locked at all. It simply turned. Very slowly, he pushed the door open, almost expecting it to creak menacingly, but it opened easily on recently oiled hinges. It opened into darkness, at least compared to the bright summer's day that was outside. So Pokarth sheathed his sword, immediately becoming less inquisitive, and drew a torch from his backpack, which he lit by striking some tinder against a small piece of cotton until it lit, and then soaking the head of the torch in some oil that he kept for exactly this purpose, and lighting that. He then packed away the tinder and stamped out the cotton, and then with the torch in his left hand he redrew his observation sword in his right hand and looked around. He was in a roughly rectangular room, probably 5 meters by 3 meters. In the wall directly ahead of him, there were 2 ordinary doors, and to the left, a grill door like a jail cell might have. To his right was just a wall. There was nothing in the room. It was empty, apart from a few cobwebs in the right hand corner above the rightmost door. Immediately he went and examined the cobwebs in case there was a big spider, but there wasn't. There was just some cobwebs, and they were quite dusty, indicating they had been there for quite some time. Pokarth then crossed back across the room, walking 5 meters, and peered through the grill into a small side chamber, approximately 2 meters by 2 meters square. He tested the door handle, expecting it to be locked, but it wasn't, and it opened outwards. He stepped into the room. There were no entrances or exits that he could see. It was just a square room with nothing in it. On the north-facing wall, however, there was a sconce with a torch in it, and Pokarth applied his own torch to the sconce, lighting that. There was now double torch amount of light in the 2x2 room, and Pokarth took some time to examine the tiles of the floor and the bricks of the walls, searching, you see, for secrets, a secret lever, or switch, or a loose tile that might cause a secret door to swing open. But there was nothing. And in the end, he came out of the room and returned to the main entry chamber. He stood slightly off center of the room, looking at the two doors in the eastern wall. One was painted red, and the other painted black. The black door was the one on the right. The red door was the one on the left. Pokarth made his decision and crept forward. His boots only making the smallest of sounds. He took hold of the handle of the door and was surprised when he turned it to find it unlocked. He opened the door, and it led into a corridor which extended east for approximately 2 meters before turning north. The light of his torch could illuminate nothing around the corner on account of it turned 90 degrees. Pokarth entered and walked 1 meter and then turned to face north. There the corridor extended approximately 6 meters before it came to a stop. But on the left-hand side, at 4 meters, there was a cross junction where the corridor went either way, and then at 2 meters, another corridor that branched off to the right or east, depending on how you prefer to orient yourself, orientation, orient, orientation, orient. Sounds, I'm not sure I'm using the right word. Anyway, Pokarth took 2 or maybe 3 steps, because it doesn't take a long time to cover 1 meter of distance, and peered around the corner. It was dark, but he could tell that the corridor extended for 1 meter and then opened up into a larger room. He decided to continue along the corridor, and he did so until he came to the cross junction. To the left, he realized the corridor only extended another 1 meter, creating a little alcove, and the same to the north. A little alcove, approximately 1 meter square. The kind of alcove you would maybe put a little statue in. Pokarth examined the ground, got down on his knees, holding his sword of investigation, and thought he could detect the faint outline of where perhaps the plinth of a statue may have in the past been placed. Something about the coloration, a vague sense of the stonework being worn. Yes, he nodded to himself. At some point, both of these alcoves held statues, but they are not here anymore. Pokarth turned to face the east, where 1 meter of corridor led into what he assumed was the same larger space as the other previous meter of corridor on the eastern side of the corridor had led to. With his sword extended before him, his torch held above his head, Pokarth stepped carefully down the corridor and found himself in another large room, approximately 5.5 meters by 5.5 meters square. The room was empty, although the floor was raised 30 centimeters at the far end, creating a 1.5 meter platform. At the far end of the room. Other than that, the room was empty, apart from two sconces set equal distance apart on the far wall. Pokarth lit the two torches in the sconces, and the amount of light in the room increased. Pokarth looked around for a while, but there wasn't anything there. The room was empty. He went out through the southernmost corridor exit, turned left, walked 1 meter, turned right, walked 1.5 meters, re-emerging into the entrance chamber. He closed the red door behind him, and then walked south to the black door, which he opened. Surprisingly, the door was unlocked. He gingerly opened it, and as the door opened fully, he saw in there was a room 3 meters by 2 meters wide, a rectangular room. It was empty, except for a small circular table in the northeast corner. On it, as he approached, was a vase of yellow flowers, and next to that, a pile of brochures advertising the dungeon was for sale. Pokarth looked at the price. It was within his range. He pocketed the flyer and headed for home. That was Season 5, Episode 12 of Sleepy Time Mumbles, Pseudo-Medieval Sword Adventure 6. Sleepy Time Mumbles is produced by Noosed Octopus and created and hosted by me, Dan Bain. You can follow the show wherever you can find it. Until next time, good night. Sleep tight.